The Adjusting Process, Adjusting Entries by Deja Jones. Identification. Now, why are adjusting entries so important? Well, first off, it's important to know that adjusting entries are made at the end of the accounting period, and these adjustments are needed to properly measure net income loss on the income statement and assets and liabilities on the balance sheet. And as you know, we learned how important income statements and balance sheets were last week. Explanations. Now, there are 4 types of adjusting entries, and they are separated between deferrals and accruals. Now, the first type of adjusting entry that I'm going to speak on is deferred expenses. Now, deferred expenses are also known as prepaid expenses. And a good definition for deferred expenses will be assets created when a business makes advance payments of future expenses. An example of that would be prepaid rent. I have here a chart that I have created to show how that would be shown in a journal entry. So let's say June 1st, a business pays $4,000 for rent. Now, when the next month comes, $1,000 was to be subtracted because the rent would be $1,000 a month. So that person has prepaid rent up until 4 months. After the $4,000 is gone, that person can prepay the rent up again. But this is just how you record it in the journal entry. Now, the next type of adjusting entry that I'm going to talk about is deferred revenues. Now, that's a liability created when a business collects cash in advance before completing a service. So, an example of this would be is when a family wants to pay $500 ahead of time to get their grass cut 5 times. So that means each time that family gets their grass cut, that will be $100. And so on the chart, it tells you that the family paid $500 cash, and that the reason why is that it was received for future services. It's always good to record journal entries because they help at the end of the accounting period when it's time to make the income statements and balance sheets. Having an everyday ledger is very important so everything can be kept in order. Now, the next type of adjusting entry is accrued expenses. These are expenses that the business has incurred but not paid yet. An example of that would be when a business pays monthly salary to their employees. So if a company agrees to pay a person $4,000 a month, then that person bi-weekly will get $2,000. And people usually work before they get paid, so that's how that works there. Another type of adjusting entry would be the accrued revenues. Now, that's revenue that has been earned, but the cash has not been collected. And accrued revenues are considered assets. Application. Now, the use of adjusting entries at entry-level professional will probably not be so much. These entry-level professionals will probably just be trained on how to record and recognize the 4 adjusting entries. Now, use at the mid-level professional, these professionals will probably handle recording the adjusting entries in the journal entries and in the financial statements at the end of the accounting period. Executive level professionals like the boss and CEO, these people will instruct the mid-level employees to record the adjusting entries in the journal entries and in the financial statements at a specific time. So these bosses are going to tell these mid-level professionals these need to be recorded now. Ethics. How to deal with the ethical issue if it came up. A simple scenario would be, my company collected $500 ahead of time to cut a customer's grass once a month for 5 months. One of the contractors was paid his $100, but he did not go cut the grass. If I was presented with this issue, for one, I would apologize to the customer first, because the customer has expected to get their grass cut, and it was my job to make sure that the contractor got there. And even though the contractor was supposed to go, I entrusted the contractor to go, and they didn't. It still falls back on me. It still shows how I am running a business, and I don't want the customer to feel like that I'm putting the blame off on someone else. So I'm going to automatically take the blame. I'm going to apologize. And if I have to, I'm one of those bosses that will get down and do the dirty work that nobody wants to do. So if I don't have any other contractors to go and cut that person's grass, I'll go cut that person's grass myself. And then I'll deal with the contractor later. But my first priority would be to get the job taken care of. Take care of that customer and make sure that their grass gets cut, because they have already prepaid their $500 ahead of time. So that's the number one priority. Take care of the customer. Now let's look at it from a biblical perspective. Being a hypocrite is a big no, especially for people who are Christians. Saying one thing and doing another causes confusion for potential Christians on the market to join a religion. Now, I feel like the same thing goes when you're in a business. If you say one thing and do another, that potentially puts a negative outlook on your business. Now, 2 Timothy 3:5 says, having a form of godliness but denying its power, have nothing to do with such people. New International Version. And I really feel with this verse, because it's basically saying, okay, so this person claims to be a Christian or claims to be holy, but they don't live that way. And that's why they say actions speak louder than words. And I will also do that from a business perspective. Actions speak louder than words. It's one thing to say something, but it's also another thing to say something and follow through with it. And here are my references.